allow the executive to physically respond to the issues raised. We can say with confidence that we make good progress in this regard, and we intend to make momentum. So it's not going to be just a talk show here. At the end of the day, issues that we lift from this out of this process, we have to go and engage whoever needs to be engaged for a positive response, so that we don't annually meet here only to find out when we meet the following year, we are still hammering on the issues that were raised without providing any progress on what has been done thereof. The engagement today will cover a variety of issues affecting the workers, working class, and the poor, and the key object of maintaining labor peace. By maintaining labor peace, all stakeholders are guaranteed the safe working conditions that are developmental and enriching to all. Ensuring stability within working environment is also good in building better communities. Our communities respond better to institutions that project strong labor peace and sense of stability. In this way, we stand a good chance of building active citizenry with strong sense of understanding of government mandate. Workers, therefore, are involved in a very aspect of life, and thus their observations are often the most advanced of all sectors. If it is for this reason that we felt that no matter the challenges surrounding the coordination of this event, we are forging ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, we also meet here today as we conclude the Africa Day, which is a very important day to us as Africans. As we remember, we are celebrating Africa Day because of the 25th of May 1963, when the countries, after breaking away from colonization, met and decided to launch a platform that they are going to use in order to advance the needs of the people of Africa. By that time, it was OAU, Organization for African Unity. We have also launched as the legislature the Common Parliamentary Association of the Free State Branch. The launch was a culmination of a long process of international relations work led by national parliament and legislatures. We intend to use this platform to continue the work that has been championed by our government and various federations through the International Labour Organization. We believe that using CPA platform will allow best practices and give more meaning to various conventions adopted at international level and ratified by our countries. Our African Region CPA and other platforms also help us to forge strong relations with our counterparts at the continental level. Our countries are now experiencing a greater movement of people due to different reasons, but in the main, it is people seeking a better life. This situation increases the strain on individual countries' economies and increases uncertainties in the abilities of the countries to defend the interests of its citizens, but also of the rise of migrants and workers in general. We are celebrating the Workers' Month as part of the International Workers' Month, as many successes we have achieved as a country. The establishment of a very strong workers' organizations, employers' organizations, and a very solid collective bargaining regime are some of the work we must always celebrate. The Labour Relations Act 66 of 1995, Basic Conditions of Employment Act 75 of 1997, are some of the milestones of workers' achievements in their many years of struggle. Having strong institutions such as the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, the Regional Appeals Committee, and the Department of Labor and the Labor Inspectorate are but a few indications of the immense work that needs to be celebrated in this month. The challenges of the changing world of work being influenced by issues such as the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the accentuation world economy, and the now COVID-19 pandemic affect the workers directly. It is also the workers who are our hope to find lasting solutions to all these challenges. Already, our workers have proven that they have a very strong sense of adaptation to new conditions and change. More and more of the solutions we have in our different organizations and sectors today are the tireless work of innovations by workers. Therefore, as much as we believe strongly in building strong organizations that take care of a well-being, therefore, as much as we believe in building strong organizations that take care of the well-being of the employer's interest, as it is with the interest of the workers themselves. As we open this session of the Workers' Parliament, we take the opportunity to celebrate and honor the mass democratic movement in the war against apartheid, which was characterized by the exploitation of workers and the working class. The apartheid system denied the workers all their rights and made it difficult for women to become equal participants in the building of our country and the economy. At the same time, the apartheid system encouraged child labor and super exploitation, as mentioned before. While there are many challenges we still need to confront, we stand to appreciate and honor you, the worker, for the contribution you have made in shaping the government to have a constitution that consists of the Bill of Rights, which is also sensitive to the welfare of workers. This must be understood in the context of our country having had a very strong movement generally from the working class in order to advance and pursue these struggles. Today, these many successes have become a norm. Most of our people do not understand that the 8-hour working period was won through sweat and blood of the workers. There is today more and more flexibility in their work schedules, allowing organizations and workers to accomplish target complexity. It is now a requirement in law that workers are required to take regular leave days, and there is more control on free time. Ladies and gentlemen, for this and all other progressive rights and democratic gains, we intend to keep the flag flying high. It is our hope that our work will continue to encourage individuals to do their most. Not just to work, but to become a worker all round. Honorable delegates, with these few words, I thank you. May the deliberation be of great value to the workers of the world. Thank you, Madam Director.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and also to you, Deputy Speaker, for the items that we have just concluded now. Speaker did mention that the constitutional mandate of the legislature are actually to make laws, to oversight, to conduct oversight over the executive, as well as to facilitate public access and participation in the business of the legislature. So for us to be able to respond to one of those constitutional mandates, we would like to inform the House that this session is live streamed. So anyone who wanted to access it can just go to Free State Legislature Facebook and YouTube, and then delegates are also encouraged to inform their members just to link so that they can be able to view the proceedings of the House. We would then go to the presentations as per our program. The first one then will go to the Honorable MEC for Finance, Honorable Mayor Brown. Mayor Brown, the stage is yours. Thank
you. Kia leboa. Kia leboa. Thank you, Program Director. Allow me to kindly acknowledge the Honourable Speaker, Ms. Zanele Sifuba, our Honourable Premier in our absence, Ms. Sisi Ntombela, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Ms. Lucy Mapena, Honourable Chief Whip, Ms. Sarah Moleleki, Deputy Secretary General of SAFTU from a national level, Jihad Sionia, Provincial Secretary of COSATU in the province, Ndati Mahlatsi, Provincial Deputy Secretary of SAFTU in the province, Mayor Felicity, leadership of the federations present, leadership and members of unions across the province, comrades, ladies and gentlemen, Amandla. Honourable Program Director and Speaker, whilst I'm in this house, I refer to the Honourable Speaker. There are such strict rules. So today we are referring to the Honourable Program Director, but allow me, Honourable Speaker, to thank you for the invitation to present the role of the Free State Government in the current economic landscape and labour market on behalf of the Free State Government. It is important as part of our roles and responsibilities is to strengthen our social compact as a government. And that means is to strengthen stakeholder relationships between government, industry, business, labour and civil society. Honourable Speaker, as we stand here and be reminded during Workers' Month that the COVID-19 pandemic hit South Africa at a time when its economic vulnerabilities had already been aggravated by a prolonged period of depressed investment, subdued growth and high and rising public debt. In this context, the country suffered one of the largest output contradictions amongst emerging markets and those economies in 2020. Those social contradictions already strained by stubbornly high poverty rates, unemployment and inequality, which worsened further the education system, the job losses, which was disproportionate and affected youth, women and the poor in our country. A significant loss of jobs has been recorded during that period, taking the unemployment rate to a record of high unemployment levels. The Free State Government's leadership reacted swiftly to the pandemic's fallout by providing cash support and unemployment protection. So how did we do that, Honourable Speaker, as a province? The province used to have a 600 million rand overdraft since 2011. In 2019, we declined that overdraft and we started building reserves. How did we build the reserves? We invested our cash in the Reserve Bank and in banks, and we received interest income. And in order to reserve those cash and present interest income, it allowed us to deal with that support on unemployment. Furthermore, at a national level, the President placed the President Employment Package, both in the Department of Health and the Department of Education, which allowed close to just R500 million worth of funding on the President Employment Package across the 3 terms to be able to stimulate short-term employment for the province. Speaker, the pandemic has also highlighted the crucial need to put our trajectory and the province's public finances in order to reverse the upward public debt trajectory. So as a province, we had to ensure that we consolidate, we reduce our debts, and we reverse the public debt within the province. And we also looked at reducing financing cost. We increased market confidence by attracting certain investments, and we improved the quality of public expenditure to make room for further investment on infrastructure, basic services, and other matters that recorded some of the challenges that we required for social support. Speaker and Program Director, there were various businesses at various levels that were affected during this national lockdown, specifically in the events management industry, in the tourism industry, in the industries that were affected mostly by social distancing. And these were industries at the time that were not regarded as providing social services. They, on the other hand, they also affected supply chain disruptions. So the ability for us to take goods to market and to ensure reliant and updated services within the public sector, those had also been disrupted during the time of the pandemic. The telecommunication sector, the selected mining activities were due to decrease in demand of minerals across the trade environments, and accommodation tourism requirements due to travel bans, construction, transport, and various other services. Allow me to say, members and Program Director, that the impact of the pandemic on the economy depended highly on information related to facts at the time. And that facts were provided by business people, were provided by industry, and were provided by the market to understand those surveys that were conducted by Stats SA to provide us with the correct indices and economic analysis to determine the way we budgeted, to determine the economic effects, to determine how we would necessarily deal with policy related to the challenges that we had required during the time. On workforce implications, Honourable Program Director, the full impact of COVID on employment will be determined over time, but we can see the direct loss now, right now. We will only see the full impact maybe 2-3 years from now. And that is very, very scary. And that is the reason why we are so happy that we're having this conversation today. Because it is up to us to be proactive in determining how we will address those matters prior to it being communicated. So employment tends to be lagging in terms of how we deal with the analysis, but the real feel, the tangible matters are being felt and seen as we work through our conditions and our processes currently. So if we can look at the current national fiscal environment, the current global outlook, and the provincial outlook to determine how we regulate and how we indeed deal with those issues as we go forward in this topic of discussion today. So first and foremost, at a national fiscal environment, our debt to GDP is currently at 69.9%. 69.9, meaning that there is a deficit of revenue and expenditure of 15.9%. So currently, if we just put that in layman's terms, national government is spending 15.9% more than we are collecting. And that's overall budget. Local government, provincial governments, national governments, we're talking about industry, business, and all those aspects that fill and filter in to national expenditure and national revenue. We're also looking at debt service costs with interest expenditure, which continue to climb, and we are expected to average 333.4 billion rand a year over the medium term. That is one of the largest expenditure items on a national budget on expenditure, even greater than the highest expenditure item, which is SAPS and defence. 333.4 billion rand. Now our role is to reduce that debt to GDP. That is our role, and how are we going to do that? Is to create a conducive environment for the economy to grow so we can generate more employment, we can generate further individuals to increase money flow into the system, generate more taxes, so that we can generate more revenue at a national, provincial and local level. But how does the macro environment affect what it is that we plan to do? And we can only understand that by understanding the global macroeconomy. So, Honourable Programme Director and Speaker, if we look at a broad overview of the global economic growth in 2022, it shows that it's weaker than expected in terms of growth rate globally. All countries, even your mega countries. And this is maybe due to the high transmissibility of a less fatal variant of the pandemic, rising energy prices, notably oil, of course the Ukraine-Russian conflict that we're currently seeing, the US-China trade tension continues to become more tense, a persistent global supply chain disruption is still continuing with the lagging effect and the multiplier effect to global and domestic economies. The cumulative effect of these unanticipated emerging shocks on global growth has led, of course, to tight financial conditions and high inflations across advanced and emerging and developing economies, and creating a tight financial and fiscal condition, and of course spinning in domestic currencies as well. So trade on currencies, trade on commodities, the ability to look at our trade balances as a country and the globe and the traditional way of trade has to change in order to affect the way we think about our domestic economy and our domestic growth. It is worth noting, Programme Director, that there is a positive growth outlook which is predicted for many economies in 2023, and as the disruption of the global supply chain is anticipated to have eased somewhat, while COVID-19 becomes less contagious amongst communities, possibly due to herd immunity as well as increased vaccines, which in effect allows broader movements and cross-border movements. For example, the tourism, the hospitality trade and other services have now been able to open and somewhat start functioning at a level that is not necessarily aligned to what the projections were looking, but somewhat open at this point. So as mentioned before, higher inflation is anticipated across the globe, and we've seen it in South Africa in terms of the inflation rates that have just increased. An average of 3.9% in advanced economies and 5.9% in emerging economies and emerging markets and developing economies at the end of 2022 and 2023, and then before that, though, it will subside to 2.1% and 4.7% respectively in the end of 2023. We should also mention that a less accommodative monetary policy in the US may lead to tighter global financial consolidation and conditions through the Federal Reserve, and while it's raised its historically low interest rate, forcing reserve banks and financial institutions across the globe to raise domestic interests and also put pressure on domestic currencies in our emerging economies, it would also mean that higher interest rates will raise the cost of borrowing and financing in the world capital markets, putting more constraint on public finances. Comrades, what about digital currencies? How is that going to affect our financing, our interest rates, our cost of borrowing, our leveraging of financing? What is the effect on that? And that is something that we should also, from a technology and innovation perspective, understand how it's going to affect the financial markets. The further geopolitical tension remains a downside to risk and global growth. And we're also seeing that the gas supply for US, Britain, France, European Union, Canada and Australia have also affected not only the challenging prices of oil in South Africa, but now it's topped over a barrel of $100 for the first time since 2014. And absolutely that is going to affect the labour market. On the domestic outlook, Honourable Programme Director, Honourable Speaker, The restraint placed on the growth of the South African economy by COVID-19 over the past years has absolutely exacerbated the social economic challenges of our country. Just to mention that other elements and aspects have also further increased that. Unemployment, poverty. We are notably the first #1 country in the world for the gap between the richest and the poor. So, rising inflation, disruptive social unrest, varying structural issues that associated with growing gross government debts, load shedding, the effects that it has on our productive sectors, business, our aging infrastructure, failing public entities, and bargaining public wage bill are all aspects that are affecting the way we derive policy, or the way we thought we had to derive policy and drive investment and growth in this province, in this country, over the past 3 years, going into the next 3 years. So as we put all of that together as a problem statement, when we put together our national budget vote, as we put together our provincial budget vote, and as we deal with budget lekgotlas within government, we had to consider the role of public sector, the role of the private sector, the role of industry, the role of foreign investment, and the role of labor in what it is that we do with every cent that we spend. National Treasury also further predicted that the economy would slow down to 2.2% with a further decline to 1.6% in 2023. Now it is up to us to determine that trajectory. Are we going to allow for the predictions based on what currently has happened with the socio-economic challenges that we have? Would we allow that to happen based on our current socio-economic environment? And further to that, the gain from the rising commodity prices and the social unrest that we experienced in 2021, the floods that we've experienced in KZN, and also the disasters that has happened in parts of the Free State and parts of the Eastern Cape, has also diverted our attention and our focus on a fiscal level to those other aspects, which is dealing with some of our productivity, some of our growth baselines, some of our plans, and some of our policies on employment growth. The labor market and the available unemployment data in the quarterly labor force survey report reveals that the unemployment rate increased by 0.5 percentage points to 34.9% in the third quarter of 2021, from 34.4% in the second quarter of 2021, which was the highest unemployment rate recorded for South Africa since the beginning of the Labour Service Market Survey in 2008. Quarterly Labour Force Service Survey since 2008. While the expanded unemployment rate grew by 2.2 percentage points to 48.6% in the third quarter of 2021. At a sectoral level, unemployment declined, and I'm going to give you values, 571,000 people, 5.6% in the formal sector. So we lost 571,000 jobs in the formal sector, by 65,000 in the private household sector, which accounts to 5.4%, 32,000 in the agricultural sector, which is 3.8%, in the third quarter of 2021. Still, employment in the informal sector increased by 9,000, which is very small in comparison to the numbers that I've just outlined, 0.3% in the third quarter of 2021. Overall, significant job losses were recorded across all industries between the second and third quarters of 2021, except for the finance sector industry, which gained 138,000 jobs. The annual inflation rate in South Africa rose to 5.9% in December, which prompted the South African Reserve Bank to raise interest by 25 basis points. and this contradictory policy stance caused a marginal reduction in the inflation rate of 5.7% in January 2022. And our current target is still 6%. So on the latest Monetary Policy Committee statement that was released in January this year, it affirms an expected average inflation of 4.9% for 2022. After, of course, inflation averaged 4.5% in 21, and of course with those rising oil fuel prices, the contradictory matters, the service and electricity costs, it is anticipated that inflation rate will only move below 5% towards the second half of this year. On the province, Honourable Speaker and Programme Director, Free State economy was already in recession in 2018 and 2019 and declining by an average of 0.4% in the period under that review, in that period. And the pandemic was to shrink the provincial economy by a negative 7.2% in 2020. The rapid rollout of the vaccines has at least strengthened our ability to deal with the economic performance at a positive level. So we boosted business confidence and investment and ensured that there was no going back down to those hard lockdowns. We're seeing now in this year that we're opening for Makufe, we're opening for more events happening in the province. And although it is not at the level that we anticipated to be, it is somewhat assisting small businesses to come back in the events, tourism, supply chain and distribution industries. We are still confronted by increasing variance, and we do project the economy as a province to grow on an average annual growth rate of 1.8% from 2021 to 2025. With this level of growth, the province will not be able to fast track and fight against unemployment as we would wish to. So we're still dependent on the national policy agreement on the presidential employment package. We're still very dependent on national interventions with regards to those short-term employments until the economy stabilizes and until we can get our sectors back to its trajectories in terms of their growth and sectoral growth. A continued weak economic growth has also translated into poor labour market outcomes, and we're going to have to face that. And unemployment rate in the province has increased, and I can give it to you in real terms, in terms of the labour market survey in Q2 of 2021, from 36.5% to 38.1% in Q3 of 2021. The economically active labour force was also decreasing by 17% between Q2 of 2021 and Q3 of 2021, whilst on the other hand there was a slight increase in the total labour force fuelled by new entrants into the market, which is mostly youth, and that is more on your innovation sectors. And that is your digital environments, your technology, and some of the innovation, which is not necessarily recorded by Stats SA within the generic sectoral and economic indices. So given this weak economic outlook, it spurred the province to look at some solutions, and this was consulted, we went through public participation, we did some work, and I think it is a baseline for job creation and job drivers, but we're going to have to find ways of implementing faster and providing guidance faster, specifically from the audience that we're speaking to today. Largely, when we talk about some of the solutions, we also talk about efficiencies. We hear effectiveness and efficiency, and that is really optimizing HR together with other resources and ensuring that we get the best productivity out of our markets. But as we look at those solutions, let's look at the business industry and sectoral environment, and then we can discuss labour. So some of the solutions within our span of control as a province is to prioritise local procurement to assist local businesses to participate fully in value chains and enable them to employ more local people in line with the Free State Provincial Growth and Development Strategy. So how have we done that? we've requested that as we deal with the program management and project management of infrastructure projects, we're asking that project managers, together with consultants and those in the industry, to deliver projects on time and on budget. And furthermore, projects that are delivered within a local municipality have to deal with the uptake of local labor. That is some of the specifications that we've placed on any new tender that deals with infrastructure projects going forward as a province. As mentioned, procurement of local businesses. So what we've done, as an example, in the infrastructure environment, we've allocated projects to various districts. And for example, off my head, Mangaung received 36% of the total value of infrastructure projects, Vezile Dabi 20%, Tabu Futsaniana 19%, Ledwele Putswa, I think it was 16%, and Karib District 7%. In the past, it was much more distorted. It was much more, we found Mangaung receiving close to 36% of total projects and Karib District receiving 3%. And our argument over the previous years was we, as a government, we are creating a distorted and skewed economy. We're driving areas of multiplier effects in bigger areas of our districts and our economy, and in the smaller rural areas, we're keeping them rural by generating and providing lesser budgets to those rural areas, and we've asked that we consciously address those matters. And that then also deals with the labor environment within those various district economies. And we trust that the district development model will help us be able to bring up and deliver some of the labor issues when it comes to projects at that level as well. And furthermore, our call as a province is to state to local governments that even though province is investing in your district and in your local government, we would like that local government also through their MIG and conditional grants and other grants that they receive from national, they augment those type of investments and deal with the same principles of locals first to be able to augment some of those poverty, unemployment challenges that we are receiving. Supporting local SMMEs. And what we're doing as a treasury and as economic development is assisting with the opportunity base. So they deal with creating the opportunities, an incubator, servicing the SMME market to assist them with funding, grant support, sometimes stock, other times equipment, and some other type of programs and policies that they're dealing with. But as treasury, we support the province at every level, at every corner of this province. If anybody's got issues with compliance, they can deal with somebody called Linda Riddles at Treasury or Tsepo Mabilo. And this team goes out every quarter to every part of this province, through every district, by helping CSDs, tax compliant issues, tender compliant issues. If there are issues on BAS, LOGIS, whatever it may be, just to ensure that your local SMMEs understand. Even if at a municipality level, if you are providing catering, make sure that you can provide an invoice that is got tax compliance so that you can be on CSD, so that that municipality can pay for that catering, and that municipality is not compliant to deal with cash and petty cash, which is irregular. They need to go through a process and make sure that it's done correctly. We also provide agricultural support because we saw that was one of the sectors that were highly affected by the pandemic. We also provide tourism support, and both in that environment, we're looking at those emerging economies in those sectors, those emerging farmers, emerging B&Bs. We're also looking at the value chain within the agricultural supply chain and preferential procurement to favor black individuals and QSEs and EMEs in that market. And we also improve the supporting of e-governance, but mostly technology. And I think it's something that we should discuss as labor, because skilling individuals within organizations, both in the public and private sector, We are leaning towards competing at a global environment and at a global sense, and technology and the use of technology and the ability to bring product to market at the most efficient ways through technology is one of the high key drivers. And it's important for our labor, a pool of labor, to understand how to be skilled and reskilled in that environment to remain competitive. But Speaker, part of both the State of the Province address and the provincial budget vote, the system of this economy needs to change, and specifically in this province. And part of our discussions at a broad level was drivers. And I'm going to raise issues that is going to spark debate, and we will have a robust discussion about it. So what we need to do, like I said, as a government, create this conducive environment. But what are those drivers to create that environment? Firstly, it's water. You cannot have an industry, you cannot be dealing with production or manufacturing if you don't have regular water supply. So just to give you historic figures, in 1994, only 51% of the South African population had access to clean drinking water. In 2020, the South African government increased that figure to 88.6%. And we do, comrades, Program Director, Honourable Speaker, we do have grants in the system at a national, provincial and local level to deal with our water challenges. Kwakwa is one example. Putting a temporary borehole, putting in pumps, there's this water projects that are happening in Kwakwa. But the management is not very good, Honourable Speaker. You have a management of a water plant, it's been locked, you go there to do oversight, you ask for the key, the person who is supposed to be there is not there, the lock is rusted, you can see that place hasn't been opened for more than 6 to 8 to even a year. And those are the stuff that we as provincial government, when we do our oversight, is asking those questions at a municipal level, because we perhaps do these projects at a national level and we transfer it to the municipalities for municipal management, and we ask the municipality, where is your security? Where is the person that's a technician that's supposed to look after this water plant? Why hasn't it been serviced over the year? And we wait for answers. Now it is that type of management that we must bring in. So the solutions are there. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got the budget. There are municipal infrastructure grants that can deal with water. We've got the National Department of Water and Sanitation. We do know that we've got maintenance costs that has resulted to the pre-apartheid challenges that we've had, where certain water infrastructures were provided to certain parts of this country and left like it was, without any determination or budgeting for maintenance. And when we came in democracy, post-1994, we found ourselves having to deal with additional infrastructure because our people wanted water, and immediately. And we've had to deal with capital budgets, not maintenance budgets. So the formation of driving capital budgets during that time without necessarily dealing with the maintenance budget has now created this effect of where we're struggling to deal with maintenance of infrastructure in the water and the capacity for us to have it. But there has to be new projects. For example, you have in the Free State the biggest dam on the African continent, the Garib Dam, and we cannot even pump that water into its own municipality. So infrastructure planning needs to change, and yes, we do need capital budgets, but there are infrastructure budgets at a national, provincial and local level for this to happen. It's the management that we need to deal with, and this is where we are calling on you, my leaders, to deal with how we manage our people within these sectors to make sure that we deliver what it is that we need to deliver. On electricity, it's another job driver. So number one was water. Secondly is electricity. By 1994, comrades, only 36% of the South African population had their homes electrified. 36%. Today, in 2020, we've increased that to 84%. But we don't have stable and consistent electricity. We don't. And again, all I can say is management. Why are we utilizing the cost of coal, diesel to keep electricity running when we've got solutions, renewable energy and the likes? So if we want to, as leaders, create a policy of an energy generation, a mixed, is it called the energy mixed generation, where you have coal, diesel, renewable energy and other types of mixed types of forms and inputs of energy, we can do that and create a cost-efficient electricity supply. But we need to be able to also deal with the policy directives, the political will and the management thereof. Now what we've done to create an electricity sustainable supply is the President announced the generation of the 100 megawatts, so the registration threshold has increased. The amendments to the Electricity Regulation Act that had happened in 2021, the raised licensing threshold for self-energy generation from 1 megawatt to 100 megawatts solely to expand the capacity of energy generation. All of those policy directives have been put in place and has been approved. But what is it that we're doing at a local level to make sure that it's happened? Where is the implementation? And it's up to us in our municipalities, in our provincial governments, to allow for the environment, issues of land and land use, the lease agreements, the ability for investors to come in and put such solutions in. And I want to talk to us about how we deal with investments, because this is critical for labor. I'm going to talk about that now in the PPP process. How is it that we package it and create a model that is beneficial for everyone? And I think the Department of Minerals and Energy released a 6th bid recently under renewable energy for the Independent Power Producer Program, which opened at the end of March in 2022. So I think there are options and possibilities for us to look at some of these solutions. Again, it is about coming together, unifying and understanding that we must all deal with a bigger purpose here, which is job creation and economic growth. And part of that is job drivers. I spoke about water, electricity. Third matter is land. We've done land audits as a government. So Public Works has completed land audits, which included land that's sitting with rural development, with agriculture and other public bodies. Municipalities are busy with their land audits. So the zoning, the ability to be able to understand which land parcels are beneficial for economic use, what the market-related prices would be, should it be for lease, should it be for sale, and so on and so forth. So in terms of that, there has been some work done, and the Premier in the State of the Province address outlined that the province has commenced with a program to distribute land to our people. I think so far there were a few transactions that had concluded, but currently we have 4,872 land parcels valued at 11 billion rands in the province. And the total number of pieces of land, 2,626, have been earmarked to be transferred to rightful beneficiaries. So those are traditional lands, those are lands that have already been allocated and so on, a title deed land and so on and so forth. So those are the ones that have already been earmarked. But in terms of the Land Management Act and in terms of procedural mechanisms in which the province needs to do it, that has been concluded. The province, together with national, have concluded the legislation and the policies in that regard. So we are ready to be able to distribute land, either where we go out to market and we call for leases, or we go out to market and we call for sale, or if there is a public-private type of initiative, it also requires to go out to market. So those are some of the work that we are doing, and that's one of the job drivers, to be able to produce some mechanisms to assist with the growth in this province. On public-private partnerships, Treasury is involved highly in the institutional requirements for PPPs, and it could be design, build, funding, operating on infrastructure projects. We look at the following to deepen this commitment between the public and the private partnerships. So we're saying that we want to do this to improve gross productivity growth, technological skills, spillover, and allow efficient execution of those projects. But what I would like to add, as I mentioned, these type of projects, when you have foreign investors or when you have investment, A model that I did when I was still in the private sector was that you have a foreign investor, could be whoever outside the country. You allow that investor to have a certain percentage share of that entity, but local requires a certain share, and workers should have a preferential share trust. And I see it a lot happening in renewable energy projects. It happened in the bank that I worked for at the time, where I had shares and I was a shareholder of that bank. And your workers, those who worked in that organization, had voting rights. Not just voice rights, but voting rights. So even if you have a preferential share trust for workers, and it's 20%, and the local individual has 31%, and the foreign person has the balance of 49%, South Africans still have the majority shareholding rights. And workers don't necessarily feel like slaves. They don't just feel like I work here for a pension, I work here for a salary. I work here, but I'm also a shareholder. And that is the type of discussions that we should be going into when we deal with foreign direct investment. And I think it's something that we should talk, Honourable Speaker, about creating some sort of legislation around how we deal with foreign investment in the country. Because there are countries, comrades, where a foreigner is not allowed to buy land. Foreigner is not allowed to conduct business if you don't have a local person that is an owner. So it is up to us to make sure that these are some of the legislations that we should pass that should be progressive so that we could protect our democratic gains. On infrastructure, like I mentioned, we dealt with the infrastructure matters, the issues of, 31% Mangaun, 20% Fizile Davi, Tabu Sanyana 19, Nejuleputsa 16, 7% Karib. And we also looked at some of the possible catalytic projects in those districts so that we could also be able to support the districts with whatever economic drivers that they're dealing with. So if we just recap, it's water, electricity, land, triple P's, infrastructure. Those were some of the drivers. Now we're coming to the upstream drivers, right? Which is technology, and technology across the board. Across the board. Agriculture is using drones. Agriculture is using pesticide, electronic devices to deal with pesticides. Infrastructure, you're using this radiology, is it radiology where you can look through the bricks and see how far you've gone down into construction sites. And in all sectors, we are looking at the use of technology, robotics, and artificial intelligence. And if we are not going to speed up our labor market, young people that are new entrants to the market is going to come in and take over the manner in which we conduct the operations of organizations through these type of efficiencies. Industrialization is critical, and one of the key indices in which we calculate GDP is the value of product that is produced within any market. And South Africa is lagging. China is 16.9% of the total global economy. The US is still 21.6% of the global economy. Africa is just under 1% of the total global economy.